What's up, everybody? Paul here from #Sports, and we decided to do a live stream and kind of take in as many questions as we can. It's been a very, very busy week, obviously at One Bills Drive and in the comments section. So we figured instead of answering all the comments as the videos that come out every day, let's just go ahead and do a live stream and get as many questions in as we can, and talk to you guys about what's going on in Buffalo. But primarily, I want to talk about the fact that with the additions this offseason, the Bills, and some people might not want to hear this, are definitely still in play for running back in the first round.
Whoa. Let me in here. Let me in. Get me in here.
You can't even let me.
No, I'm not even letting you get the opening.
All over me.
You're not even getting the opening in because you know how crazy I am with researching stuff. You give me two names, and I'm going to blame the subscribers too on this. Give me two names: Josh Jacobs and Bryce Love. You know how connections drive me nuts in the NFL.
Oh yeah.
You know how many I found between those two guys with the Buffalo Bills?
Yeah, I believe it 100%.
Obvious one. Dable coached one of them. Okay, that's the obvious one everyone's going to throw in the hat. But the fact that at one point in time, Brandon Beane was with an organization that drafted Christian McCaffrey, 8th overall. Who does he play for?
Yep.
He played for Stanford. Okay? Who else currently, tore his ACL in the last play of his last college game, tore his ACL. You know, I cannot believe all the connections that are going on between these two guys, and what better smokescreen to throw up there than signing a running back in the offseason. So that's just to me, that's just amazing. I can't believe all the connections that are going on. But you do have some truth to it, Paul. You really do have some truth to it.
Yeah, and there's a lot that goes into, trying to fit a running back into the Buffalo Bills, and we're going to get into some of the things, in just a moment. But look at the opportunity that the Bills have given whomever they bring in for this job, be it this year or next year, right? I can't imagine that they're clearing the road because you have Ivory's on the final year of his deal. McCoy's on the final year of his deal.
Yeah.
You brought in Gore, who's only on a one-year deal. I can't imagine that they're clearing the road for Marcus Murphy or Keith Ford. I don't think I'm alone by thinking that. I mean, I'm not crazy to think that Keith Ford and Marcus Murphy are not the future of the running back position, right?
No. I don't think so. I don't think those guys, being the age that they are, I mean, I know Ford's a little younger. Murphy's going to be, I think, 27 or 28. I'm not really sure if he's the guy. Plus, he had a little bit of injury concerns last year to deal with. The thing about it that is hilarious to me, with you talk about the running back situation. We'll get into more detail with Love and versus Jacobs, but if you had to pick, the Buffalo Bills, the current regime did not draft and or trade for LaShawn McCoy. You would think Love is more of the fold of a McCoy, a guy that can break an 80-yarder at any time, has great vision, and that type of runner he is. And then they have Jacobs, who you could seriously switch uniforms between Jacobs and Gore in the film that I have watched, and it's the same type of runner. It's the same. He's never really going backwards. I don't think you ever see Gore go backwards either. So it's pretty interesting when you start to see that dynamic between these two guys. Which way do they want to go? They signed Gore for a reason. They signed Ivory. They had no connections to McCoy. He was here when they got there. So It's very interesting to see. But to your point, they're not in any rush to have a running back play right now anyway.
Yeah, Connor Cahill asks in the chat, thank you everybody for joining us already. Again, we're going to try and stay as much in the chat as we can. First off, Jonathan Provost asks if Miami is a player to trade up. And with the Bills, you always have to be careful when you start talking about trading within the division, especially for a quarterback. If the Bills are willing to give up a pick for Miami to get a quarterback, it must be because they think that quarterback's pretty terrible. I can't imagine Buffalo taking the bait on that because you don't want to give your division rival the next 15 years, right? So you always have to be a little careful with that when you start looking at teams within the division. Are the Bills capable of trading back full $1 billion%? Bills are open for business. But Miami, for a quarterback, you just have to tread carefully with that kind of stuff. And Mario, I think you'll probably agree with me there. You don't want to give the baby the gun, right? I mean,
no, I mean, we talked about it before, and I'll bring it up. I know it's past your age range, but 1983, when they were talking about possibly trading, the first overall pick. I still can't remember the guy's name. It's eluding me right now. He was the GM of the Colts at the time. He said, listen, this is the price for John Elway if you want to trade up and get the number 1 pick and get John Elway. And he said, listen, if I was trading that within the division, the price would have been much higher. So I don't know how much a first-year head coach is willing to give up for his quarterback. And I don't think the Bills want to face that guy for the next 10 to 15 years, as you said. It doesn't make any sense. So trading within the division is very, very shaky. Trading with a division rival that's going to pick a quarterback, like you don't know who they're going to pick, obviously, but if they're going to pick a quarterback, that's something you want no part of.
Right.
I don't want none of that.
Right. Yeah. And Connor Cahill asks, which running back in the Bills right now do you think fills more of the RB1 role? And I mean, McCoy is obviously the default option here. Going with what we know now, I will say that last year, and I could be alone on this, so again, you guys in the comments, if you agree or disagree, please let me know. But Ivory looked more effective, right, with that single cut style running that Ivory has. He just looks, sees a gap, goes, right? McCoy has a tendency to want to try and shake for a little bit more, but in Dable's system, Ivory just looked like the more effective player. Maybe it was just more dependable. Maybe it's just perspective that I'm watching, and I see McCoy get tied up for 1 yard. I see Ivory fall forward for 3. Maybe it's just perspective that Ivory was just more dependable in that perspective. The fact is that Frank Gore and Chris Ivory, again, Mario, you just said it, their running style really does fit the Dable system a little bit better from what we've seen based off of last year. So while McCoy is the default option, Gore could have a very, very productive season, regardless if they bring in anybody else at the running back position. Because his running style fits very, very closely to what Dable, tipped his hand through last year.
Well, yeah, the guy won a national championship with that style of runner, and that's those are two of the guys, Gore and Ivory, the guys that they brought in that can fit that style. Like I said, McCoy was here when this regime started, so that may not be the type of back. Plus, we don't really know. I mean, we can't give 100% of that fact to McCoy's running style versus Ivory's running style, maybe and Gore coming in. The thing about it is, when this offensive line is revamped, how will McCoy's? We talked about it last year. McCoy didn't really show a lot of that explosiveness and or breakaway speed. He can get away from 2 guys and then get a couple of yards, but there were some runs last year that I saw that he should have been gone. Like five years ago, McCoy would have been gone, and he wasn't, and it was kind of a little bit scary. And I mean, in the chat, I just caught a glimpse of it. Kyle Pylon, he's playing to me over there. He said Greedy Williams at 9. He knows I'm a big fan of Greedy Williams. So
yeah, clearly.
Kyle, don't do this to me this early in the broadcast, man. Don't do that.
John Marilla brings up the Redskins are QB needy at 15. I mean, so are the Giants. Like, there's some QB needy teams out there, but I'm very concerned a little bit about this draft playing out not as QB crazy as some other drafts. Like, I think last year kind of set a little bit of a precedent for what teams need to do when they have a quarterback need. I'm not really sure we're going to see that much motion because I'm not really in love with the quarterbacks here. I think a few of them are really second-round players, and I know that you don't often take a quarterback in the second round, but, I'm not in love with the quarterbacks here. So I think Washington, they might even wait for QB at 15. I know that they're crazy organizations. You never really know what Washington's going to do. They are nuts.
Snyder's
a lunatic.
Literally
have no idea what they're doing on a daily basis.
Yeah, Snyder is absolutely a lunatic. Like he'll do anything. Yeah. I mean, if RG3 didn't teach him anything about giving away draft picks for a quarterback, I don't know what will.
Well, that's what I mean. How many season-ending injuries do we need to see from Washington Redskins quarterbacks before you go, I don't know, maybe the turf's the problem? right? Like how many QB careers have to die at FedEx Field, for you to say, well, we need to change something.
Being at Snyder, the dude just bought a boat that has a boat in it. Like, I don't think he cares too much about his quarterback going out, just as long as they can sell tickets.
Yeah, you're probably right.
But
right.
It's funny. We're starting to get some more comments in the chat. Dirty Randy, Hawkinson at 9. These guys really watch our channel a lot if they're playing to our emotions that way, because I know you love Hawkinson. Bryce Love, if they do it, one cut running backs are a dime a dozen by Chris Stratton. Oliver at 9. I think that's a very interesting topic as well. Do you think he'll fall to 9, Paul?
Yeah, I really do. Don't get me wrong, man. I love me some Ed Oliver. I think he's probably there. Injury concerns being what they are. I think he's probably there at 9. Because again, you look at the massive amount of defensive talent here, right? And teams are going to be jumping up to get it, but teams that are also sitting there at 7, 8, they're going to be snagging that top tier offensive talent that's just going to slowly creep down the board, right? We all talk about, we all talk about Bosa and all these other defenders that are looked at as the premier of this class, and it's defense. But there's some excellent offensive players here that they're going to come sliding down the board. So the Bills are in prime shape if they want to go offense and they want the best tackle on the board at 9. They very well could get the best tackle on the board if you think that's Taylor, if you think that is Jonah Williams. There's going to be options there. So Oliver at 9 is possible because you might start seeing if teams do start trading up for quarterbacks. That's definitely going to push Oliver down the board. And then if teams start, trying to snag off that top tier offensive talent, that's going to push Oliver down as well. I do want to throw obviously some shout outs here. So thank you very much to Cameron Davis for riding with us. Are you actually in the car, dude? Because it says you catching a video before class and the drive seems shorter. Riding with us, because normally we're the ones in the car.
Yeah.
It's just kind of weird that the shoe's on the other foot. Jonathan Provost mentions Devin Singletary. We're going to get into a lot of that. Again, being McCoy's clone, there's probably a little positive or negative there, depending on, this team, again, they inherited McCoy, so you kind of have to take a little grain of salt when you start making comparisons to current incumbent players. John Roberts brings up Gore as being a mentor to Keith Ford. Ford still has practice squad eligibility, so you could see him stick around just because, again, if they're targeting a running back and that running back's not there, they can continue doing what they're doing and not bring anybody else in and just roll with what they got. Keith Ford's got practice squad eligibility, so he could hang out on the practice squad. Man, I got to be honest with you, though. The more and more we talk about it, I love Bryce Love. I can't get enough of Bryce Love. I can't do it. Mario, I need you to talk me out of it because there's a ton of connections here, and I want to start getting to them. There's a ton of connections that are putting the Bills and Bryce Love together, and I need you to talk me out.
Well, I'll just say this. ACL.
Yeah, okay. That's fair.
If the one thing that comes to your mind when you talk about Bryce Love is the fact this guy explosive. He can break it, 90 any time, any play. This guy has all this ability. If it starts to come off of his speed and his quickness, we don't really know. We don't really know what's going on. I don't know if that'll scare a lot of teams. Bryce Love in the second round. I know everyone's going to think I'm a moron and I'm a lunatic because he's a first-round talent. He was projected to come out and all this other stuff. Yeah, in the second round, all day. If we trade back into the first, yeah, all day. At 9, with the team that is currently assembled at One Bills Drive, I know we talked about it before. This team could go in, and get their best 53 and start tomorrow, and they would be okay. I mean, I'd be happy with the team that they've assembled so far. However, I'm not comfortable with using a 9th overall pick, a guy that's going to be one of your top 22, on a guy that, all right, you're comfortable with him sitting out a year. Well, be comfortable with a second-round pick sitting out a year. Be comfortable with a You know what I mean? And they may just use that extra year for him to get ready because they have the 5th-year option on him. And if he doesn't play for an entire season, oh well. But I don't think in this rebuilding phase that you're in, and I know I may be alone in this rebuilding phase that you're in, you could afford to use a 9th overall pick on a guy that's not even going to play it down for you. Now, could he play it down? Yeah, he could. That's fine. I just think you didn't make enough of a push in free agency. I know they got a lot of guys. You didn't make enough of a move in free agency for me to think, yeah, go ahead, put the 9th pick on a guy that might not play or will play sparingly. I know he's explosive. Every time I watch a tape of Bryce Love, I think of Alvin Kamara, and we know how awesome that guy is. It just the guy had 49 total receptions in his career at Stanford. I would like a pass catching back that catches more passes than that. You know what I mean? That's a valve for Josh Allen. Now, unless you're getting more tight end help, I mean, the running back receivers can't catch everything. They really can't. So hopefully I talked you a little bit off the ledge with the Bryce Love infatuation.
Yeah, so I want to bring up the fact that, yes, there's an ACL injury for Bryce Love. The thing that's a little bit different about, like, we'll just go back in Bill's history to something that is almost irrelevant in my mind. I don't keep track of anything that's over, what's my 19 years? Is that what I say? If it's longer than 19 years ago, it's irrelevant sport. We'll go back to Willis McGahee, right? When Buffalo drafted Willis McGahee, they drafted him knowing he wasn't going to contribute year one, right? Now, very different circumstances in that NFL versus what we have now. So the collective bargaining agreement didn't exist back then, right? To the way that it does now, where you have those structured rookie contracts. If you're going to take Bryce Love in the 2nd round, just as an example, right? The problem that you run into there is the fact that he's only on a 4-year deal. So the reason that it makes it okay to take Bryce Love in the 2nd round, because again, I saw somebody put in the comment section, I completely agree. I don't really think Bryce Love's going to be there in the 3rd. I think there's a team that's going to look at it and say he's worth the chance. Let's snag him at the end of the 2nd. I'm not really thinking he's going to be there in the 3rd. But if he is, you can put him on injured reserve with the designation to return. Because yes, he injured the ACL in the last play of his last college game, and given the time frame for returning, it is highly possible that he would be ready by the end of the season. So he could take one of your IR designated to return positions, and then you're still getting at least some usage out of that first year of his contract. So again, situations are a little bit different, Daniel Garth, the McGahee pick was a mistake. I tell you what, man, he was dangerous in college, dude. He was dangerous. Dangerous. I don't think Bryce Love is a 1st-round pick. Heather Smith actually mentions that. I do not think that Bryce Love is a 1st-round pick right now because of the injury history, right? It's just not really going to happen.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned about the ACL injuries. They're a little bit different than they were.
But I do want to get to something, kind of connecting the dots here, because we talked about this at the beginning of the stream, and I kind of want to get to.
Here it comes.
So
I hope everybody's ready.
Yeah, I don't want to melt anybody's brain here, but if you take a look at recent history, right, for a bunch of years, a handful of years, there was you don't draft a running back in the 1st round. Right, and there's still a lot of that going around. A lot of teams still don't think you draft a running back in the 1st round. But if you go back into recent history, you look at Saquon Barkley, right? Dave Gettleman drafted him. Okay, so Gettleman's in with the Giants. Okay, you go to the year before that, right? To Christian McCaffrey, drafted by Brandon Beane when he was in Carolina. Don't forget, Brandon Beane was there, and also Dave Gettleman. But who else was at Stanford when McCaffrey got drafted? Bryce Love, right? So the Bills have been connected to Bryce Love a lot this offseason. They've actually, according to Dean Kindig, have visited Bryce Love more than any other running back in this class. So they've used the most visits on Bryce Love so far. And from what I hear, this guy is a Boy Scout off the field. Wonderful, wonderful, smart kid. But again, you start looking, and there's some size difference, 5'9", a little bit what they consider undersized, right? But the road is being paved for him, right? And there's a lot of connections when you start taking a look at it. Mario, what are some other connections that you can think of, just besides the fact that Bean drafted McCaffrey with Gettleman in Carolina, then Barkley got drafted by Gettleman with the Giants, and now here the Bills sit at 9. Again, I don't think Bryce Love is the pick of 9 for, obviously obvious reasons, but there's still a very strong connection the Bills are looking at.
Well, yeah, there could have been things like that. The Bills, as we talked about last year, the Bills ended up trading up to take Tremaine Edmonds, and who did they end up drafting later in that same draft? Wyatt Teller. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure Tremaine Edmonds and Wyatt Teller met a few times at practice. You know what I mean? So, and you know, some of the guys that they even talked to, or some of the guys that with Deion Dawkins. Who was it? Reddick?
Hassan Reddick is who they were tracking. Hassan Reddick.
They were tracking Hassan Reddick. Hassan Reddick never visited Dawkins once, and they were good friends. So this could be one of those scenarios where they're talking to Bryce Love to get some information on an offensive lineman, a guard, a tackle, maybe a defender that they thought was, hey, what was the toughest defender for you to get away from? And that could have been one of those scenarios. The thing about, I know they're going to be connected to Love until the draft happens, until that 9th pick is even over. So it's one of, but the one name, and I don't want to switch topics just yet because I know you got a couple more points to make on Love, but the Josh Jacobs, those connections as well that we mentioned at the top of the broadcast, where Josh Jacobs came from Alabama. He was coached by Dable. He has the similar running style to Gore and Ivory, and those are 2 guys that they brought in. And what's going to happen with this squad? You know, do you take him at 9 though? Do you really? Was being the one banging on the table for them to take McCaffrey at 8? But here's the thing: neither Jacobs or Love I see catching 100 passes like McCaffrey in this offense. And you got Josh Allen there. He's a guy that could definitely use a safety valve or 2. I mean, I think there was a comment in the chats. Who was it? I'm sorry. I'm going to scroll up. I'll get it. Don't worry. Michael Platek. He said, will Josh Allen be able to hit Cole Beasley with his accuracy issues? Well, the question is this. Can Cole Beasley catch it coming 95 miles an hour when he's running a 6-yard slant? That's the only thing that's going to be the question. But you look at, it's interesting to talk about with the Buffalo Bills when you talk about Jacobs and Love, 2 completely different backs. I mean, you couldn't get on the other end of the spectrum more than these 2 guys are. And they would still both be a fit in Buffalo, which is amazing to me because you don't know what this offense is going to do next year.
That's a great point. You're absolutely right. We're assuming quite a healthy amount as far as what the Bills offense are going to do because they brought in John Brown, they bring in Cole Beasley, and you're like, okay, well, they're bringing in guys who, can shake coverage. Cole Beasley's going to shake coverage underneath. You're bringing in John Brown to try and stretch that defense. Okay. And then you take a look at some of the tackles that they signed and some of the offensive linemen that they brought in. You're like, okay, these guys are particularly stronger at pass blocking than they are in run blocking. Okay, well, maybe this is starting to take form, right? And then they don't really address the running back position. So you're like, okay, well, maybe this is going the direction that I think it's going. But the truth of the matter is we are assuming a rather unhealthy amount of what we think this Bills offense is going to look like.
Yeah,
and that's what makes going into the draft such a crazy time to be a Bills fan because, man, you just don't know what's going to happen. You don't know where they're going to go because they could go anywhere. Literally, they filled this team through free agency to the point where the draft, they can just add on, right? Do they need to address the running back position for next year? I agree that they do. Do they need the 9 pick to do it? No, they don't need the 9 pick to do it. They have to trade back. They can trade out totally the first. Like there's so many options available to them just by the way that they've approached free agency.
Yeah, and I was just putting in the chat. Joe Smith commented. He said Jacobs is a complete back. All he lacks is breakaway speed. Well, I mean, 15 years ago at the combine, Frank Gore ran a 4.58. I don't think a lot of people remember that. Jacobs was running a 4.6 at his pro day. So
wait. Did they etch Frank Gore's 40 time into a stone tablet? Like that was forever ago. combine times for Frank Gore.
They still
You
had
kidding
it.
me?
Okay, I know it was before your 5th birthday, but he hasn't been around that long. We still got
That's
some
funny.
we still got some amazing comments going on. Thank you guys once again, for coming in the chat and hanging out with us tonight. Um, four 4-6 is still blazing. Yeah, like I said a lot of times, when you talk about speed, when you talk about like a 4-3 guy versus a 4-5 guy, they can run with each other. It's just the amount of explosiveness you get off the line. That's really all it is. It's you want to talk about breakaway speed. When you see a lot of those guys that are breaking away, and Chris Johnson being the exception, some of those guys, Barry being the exception. Some of these guys, they'll still run with them. They're just 5 yards behind them. They can't catch up, so they still run around the same speed. Cameron Taylor just writes in, "What's up, boys? Watch all your videos. Thank you very much." We're gonna scroll up though. I want to get a couple more. Pick up, run DMK13. Pick up Deontay Thompson, safety, very stout player. I mentioned it like maybe about 2 months ago, and I was talking to you about this, Paul. That's the one fear that I have with this team, is taking that type of a player, like you want to talk about like a Miles Jack or Jabril Peppers or some type, Mark Barron, those hybrid maniacs that you don't have to switch anybody off the field to switch to nickel or play your base 4-3. I'm terrified the Bills might go down that road, and the only reason I'm terrified is because those players are essentially hard to find, and then if those players end up getting hurt, then teams can know when you're going nickel, when you're not going nickel.
Sure.
That's just tough to me, because you see a guy like Mark Barron. Mark Barron, he played for the Rams last year. Need I say more? I know Aaron Donald was a big reason for that defense being so good, but Barron was Alabama product. That was a monster. So,
well, and let's be realistic about today's NFL, right? So what ends up happening is you can have a base defense, but with the way teams spread things out nowadays, you're playing sub package like 60% of the time, right? So you're playing a lot of nickel. That nickel linebacker role is really turned into, like, that used to just be the job for the third safety. Like, oh, you got 3 safeties on the roster, we'll just throw him. That's fine. He'll be fine. No biggie. We'll throw that extra safety down in the linebacker spot. He'll survive, right? That's what you did. And now that's really a role. There's players that are drafted to fill that role because it's 50% of your snap count you're playing in sub packages, or 60% of your snap count you're playing in sub packages. So you're not really in base defenses anymore. I do want to point out real quick to get back to Josh Jacobs, and I know there's a lot of Josh Jacobs supporters in the chat, so I will say that the one thing that I'm always concerned about when looking at a running back and saying, okay, well, this guy's going to be an animal at an NFL level. And I know that I think it was Casey that had brought up that there were comparisons to Josh Jacobs to Fred Jackson, right? Which, I mean, you say Fred Jackson to a Bills fan, we salivate at the thought of getting another one. The fact of the matter is that Freddie was phenomenal in pass protection. Phenomenal in pass protection. Actually, one of the reasons why he got as much playing time as he did, because you look at the running backs that were always in front of him. There was always a line of running backs drafted, much unlike Freddie, that were there to take his job, and Fred just always was there, and he was great in pass protection. With what is asked of Josh Jacobs at Alabama, I can't say that I have seen enough in pass protection pick up blitzes, right? It's just Alabama's offense. He doesn't really have to get dirty that much in that respect. So that's the one thing that I'm a little concerned about, because he wasn't really put in a position to show that feature. And if there was one thing that I learned about when the Bills drafted Sammy Watkins, everybody said Sammy could do it all. But then all of a sudden you were curious why he only caught balls behind the line of scrimmage. Well, we learned quickly as Bills fans, because Sammy would catch the ball and fall to the ground if he was past the line of scrimmage. The only way to run with the football was to throw it behind the line. So I get hesitant when we start assuming player skill up, right? And I just haven't seen a lot of Josh Jacobs in pass protection. He's going to ask a young running back to come in, really make an impact. That's a major focus. That really, I know the Fred Jackson comparison is one that Bills fans are going to love, but that was one of Fred's wonderful qualities, was he kept the quarterback upright. And we just don't really know if Josh Jacobs is capable.
Yeah, the one thing that I've seen when I've gone, I mean, I think I spent about 6 hours the other day going through tape, and I was just looking at Josh Jacobs, and the one thing that I noticed about his pass protection mainly was the fact that he doesn't attack the line. He doesn't attack the line. He's going to be coming up to the line. He's in pass pro, but he's not attacking the defender that's coming at him. And I'm thinking maybe he's either more concerned with the route or slipping out in the flat, or it could be one of those scenarios where, I mean, he's going to be used to. I mean, he played with Tua, so he's used to playing with a mobile quarterback that's near him. Josh Allen, thanks for coming. You know what I mean? So he will be acclimated to the offense from that perspective, saying, hey, I don't have a statue back here. Or he didn't formerly play with a statue. Now he's going to be playing with Josh Allen and vice versa and all that. So he's going to be able to know, all right, I could slip out, I could do this. But as far as his pass protection goes, that is the number one reason why backs do not see the field is because they cannot pass protect. And but the thing is, I didn't see him always attack. I know Saban said some great things about him. He said, listen, he's the hardest working kid you'll ever meet, blah, blah, blah. He's always speaking highly of him. And a lot of Alabama running backs have come into the league and have done fairly well. I just don't see him attacking when he pass protects. And I know I'm just being picky, but if my team that I look at and I cheer for is going to use a ninth pick on a running back, I want to make sure that guy's the whole package. I want to make sure that guy is a top 10 talent. McCaffrey, Barkley, any of those types of guys. So I know he's not either one of them, but can he catch? Yeah, he doesn't fight the ball. I mean, Paul, you always talk about it all the time with running backs. He doesn't fight the ball when he catches it. He's a very natural pass catcher. He's got sequoias for legs. This guy, you're not going to bring him down with the first man or the second man. That's how he is. That's just how he runs. And because they play such a committee backfield at Alabama, he doesn't have, all that beat. He's not beat up from playing, like carrying the ball 350 times in college. You know what I mean? So all that intertwined into one, you're going to get a guy that's fresh, that's coming in, that knows the offense. But if they draft Jacobs, just as I was saying with Love, he's not going to start right away. He won't. I just don't think he will.
I agree with you on that. I really do. I do want to hit up some of these comments in the chat.
I'm getting roasted with Alabama running backs, by the way.
Yeah, but hey guys, Trent Richardson's available. He's available. Just throwing it out there. We want to start talking about Alabama running backs.
I hate you.
There was a great point brought up by Jonathan Provost asking about linebacker positions, and actually it was somebody else had just asked about Maurice Alexander. Hold on one second, let me find it. It only take me a second.
Yeah,
it was Hunter Smith. Asked about Maurice Alexander. He's listed at linebacker when really he's played safety forever. Special teams player, right? So that's what you're bringing him in for. Could he fill that nickel linebacker role like we were just talking about? Yeah. I mean, fit that profile. Yeah. Sure. Fit that profile. Is linebacker a need for this team? I am 100% in. I am surprised that we haven't been talking about it more, right? I think there's sort of a love affair with the fact that it's clear the Bills are going to address the running back position at some point, either this year or next year, because you have 3 30-plus-year-old running backs who are all in the last year of their deal. So, I mean, the fact remains that there's probably something out there. Chuck Christopher brought up trading a pick for Duke Johnson. I have no problem with that, right? If you look, and there's 2 running backs that you have to have in this draft, and both of them you don't have an option for, and they're both gone. You throw a 5th-round pick at Cleveland for Duke Johnson, they're going to take it. Right? They just got to survive the first. Now, well, let me rephrase. Maybe not, because Kareem Hunt is suspended the first 8 games, not the first 4. They're probably going to float a little bit longer.
Yeah.
So perhaps it's not exactly the perfect fit like we thought it might have been before. But there's other backs that are out there, man. There's other backs, but dude, linebacker is a problem. If you think that Lorenzo Alexander should be the Bills' starting strong side linebacker, man, I don't know if that's going to work, because when we saw Milano go down and Alexander had to get moved back into the middle, he really got caught up on a lot of those lateral movement skills. Mm-hmm. And Alexander, we we should look at him and his skill set at this point would be best utilized in a situational pass rushing role. Asking him to play strong side, I think, is a mistake. I think we're going to be asking a lot of, and we didn't exactly address the position at all this offseason. So you look at the Devons in the draft, and both of those are still in place. Linebacker is absolutely in place for Bills.
Do you think that the Buffalo Bills, let me ask you this, because you talk about they didn't address the linebacker position. I don't think they're very worried about it. But do you think that, I know they suffered with the run later in the year. That's a given. But, however, the fact when Milano went out, and it was only Edmonds in there, and they had trouble at the linebacker position, when you and I both saw many times during the games, Hyde or Poyer would be creeping down near the box. They would be playing in that a la outside linebacker role. And they're both sure tacklers. And they were both able to come up and, stuff a few plays and play in that role. Do you think that because they kind of happened upon that discovery, saying that, hey, Hyde and Poyer can come down in the box and be just as effective as an outside linebacker, we don't have to throw a lot of money at an outside backer. What we'll do is we'll still put Milano and Edmonds in the middle, shift them over. It'll be like a nickel look, but we'll drop Hyde down to be like that other outside linebacker. And if they float a running back outside, hey, he can cover the running back. Or if they float the tight end, hey, you can cover the tight end. So they're not so much switching up their looks. So they look like they're coming out in a nickel, but they're actually playing a 4-3 base. Do you think that could be a scenario why they're not pushing to get the linebacker position? Because you know that Alexander is going to be playing with his hand in the dirt. He moves better forward than laterally at this point in his career. I mean, we've talked about that a bunch of times. So is that some of the things that you think, and which circles us back to Thompson? It could be option on the table for this team. I mean, McDermott, you keep forgetting though, he is a defensive-minded head coach, so that could be one of the directions that they go.
Yeah, it's going to be, with all the defensive talent here, man, it's going to be so hard for them not to pull the trigger on a defensive player, right? I mean, they're going to be licking their chops. Joe Smith says they're going to trade up for Bosa. I mean, you take a look at the defensive end position, and we're in a similar situation that we are with the running back position. And I don't think a lot of people are really understanding the fact that Shaq Lawson has 1 year. This is his final year of his deal. He does have an option year, which the Bills can drop at any time. It's only protected against injury. And Jerry Hughes is on the last year of his deal. And then you start looking at it besides that, Eddie Yarborough and Trent Murphy. That's where we are, right? So you start looking at the defensive end position. Man, we're not really there, in great shape either. Like, there's so many different places the Bills could go. At 9, don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm happy to be at 9, and the whole idea is to not be in the top 20 ever again, right? That's the whole goal. I know we say that we can look at the next year's draft, but next year's draft, the Bills may be drafting 27th, right? Like, it's just you can't ever imagine yourself being in the top of the draft, right? That's not the way to handle it. So, they got some needs, man. They're thin at linebacker, they're thin at running back, they're thin at defensive end. And we give them a lot of credit for rebuilding or taking a lot of chances along the offensive line, which they have. They've done a great job. They brought in enough bodies to at least create a massive competition across the offensive line. We're feeling pretty good about the wide receiver position. We're feeling pretty good about the cornerback position. There's other components that you look at next year, man, it's a desert at some positions next
year. Yeah. And Low Temps comes in. He said, "Do you think Trent Murphy is a solid starter?" Yeah, if he could stay on the field, I think he'd be a formidable starter. That's what the Bills thought. That's why I offered him a 3-year deal. I think it was. Jonathan Provost, Lawson and Hughes most likely gone next year. Like Paul just said, that could be a definite possibility. You definitely want to get depth at that position. That's probably one of the reasons why they were talking to talking about Clowney. And who's the DN from Detroit that just got his name just escaped me right now. Ezekiel Ansah.
Oh yeah, Zeke Ansah.
So Zeke. So that's another one of those possibilities. That's probably why they were talking to those guys. They probably think, or they're trying to give a message to the rest of the league. Hey, they're still thinking about going defense at number 9. We got to get up there. We got to try to give away some picks and get up there. So that could have been one of those, little chess pieces being moved on the board for the Bills. I'm not really sure. the thing about who had a comment? It was I couldn't remember. No, but I think I saw Greedy Williams come up in the chat again. You know, that name just pops off the screen at me, Paul.
No, you have a love affair with Greedy Williams.
You take Greedy Williams at 9. You're playing 9-on-9 football. I don't even care.
I agree with that. I agree with that. Yeah, I agree with that.
So
Greedy's phenomenal.
Oh,
right. But again, you look at this. We forget Trey White was the 4th cornerback off the board.
I know, it's
right?
amazing.
You got Levi Wallace. You got this team doesn't really. They don't have to invest picks in cornerbacks because they just we'll find one. We'll figure it out. The cornerback position doesn't scare them, much like the linebacker position didn't scare Doug Wheeler.
Yeah, he does
not care.
Yeah, doesn't care. You got the defensive coordinator was a defensive back in the NFL. You got McDermott there, you know what I mean? And Jonathan Provost comes in again. Could Montez Sweat be an option because of this reason? I think he'd be an option at running back for as fast as he ran the 40.
I love Montez Sweat.
Yeah.
I love Montez Sweat. Devin Bush got brought up. Scott Lapp brought up Devin Bush. I'm big into Devin Bush too, right? But you're not hearing people talk about those positions for the Bills yet, and I don't understand why, because there's a need for them this season and next season, right? So,
well, Paul, it's because of what the Bills have been doing.
Montez Sweat absolutely could be in play. I don't think Sweat is a top 10 pick. Like, don't get me wrong. I mean, talk about explosiveness. Sweat, explosiveness all day, but I think he's like 265. Right? Like, he's really, really quote-unquote, underweight for a defensive end. Yeah. Now, again, what would you do with him? I mean, he's Jerry Hughes 2.0, right? Like, that's the whole idea, is he's going to be just a pure speed rusher. You don't expect him to help you out much in the run game. He's a pure speed rusher. But, man, is he explosive. And if Jerry Hughes frustrates you as a player, you're not going to like Montez Sweat. I don't know how else to phrase that.
No, yeah, he will. Because he's a very similar type player. But I'm just telling you, the reason why no one's talking about these players and associating them or these positions with the Buffalo Bills is because that's what the Bills want. They want no one to know who they think they might be going after. So, therefore, it's still up in the air come draft time. And all these other guys are going to think. You got to remember, too, free agency opened, how many days ago now that we're recording this? Like almost 10 days ago now?
You're the math guy, dude.
Guys,
don't look at me.
I'm off the clock. Guys start hitting the panic button once they're not signed first day of free agency. You know what I mean? Because those numbers start to go down and down and down. And that market value tends to drop with some of these guys. So, because we're not talking about these types of positions, because the Bills don't want us to be talking about the types of positions. They think, oh, we addressed it. We're not worried about that. We're visiting all these linemen and running backs and stuff. They could go for a linebacker. Who knows?
Absolutely.
I mean, Bean even said it himself. We're not, we're too good to be the 9th pick. We don't deserve whatever phrase that he used. I can't remember it verbatim, but he said, they don't belong in the 9th pick. Now, does that mean that he's willing to trade that pick away? Does he not want that pick? Does he think, all right, we're taking the best available player? Well, the best available player is the choice between 3 guys. The best way to avoid that dilemma is to trade back so you don't have to take any of them. So that you don't choose the wrong one. You don't want to choose the wrong one because then you're that GM. A lot of pressure goes into being, because that's going to be attached to you the rest of your career. Josh Allen's going to be attached to Bean and McDermott. You know what I mean? So, hey, you picked this guy in the top 10. Why should we listen to you? Blah, blah, blah. So, no, I know how to pick these guys in the top 10. So, but I agree with you 100% as far as the cornerback and defensive back positions is they could find guys anywhere. They found guys everywhere at the receiving corps last year with McKenzie and Foster. They finally clicked with the offense. And so, the Bills have a bunch of places to go. Oh my God! I just saw Whaley and Nix in the chat. Daniel, why you want me to throw my shoes now? What's he doing?
Well, Daniel unfortunately is walking a very thin line with me because he brings up Clellan Ferrell, who is a defensive end. Really, don't get me wrong, like a prototypical 4-3 defensive end, is really good at just at crumpling the right side. Like he's gonna be playing over a right tackle. He's that typical guy who comes in and crumples off the right side. Not really a big speed guy. Gets great. Don't get me wrong. Gets off the ball great, but I mean, just doesn't have a ton of speed. But have we learned? You just don't draft players from Clemson, right? Have we not crossed this bridge a couple times? You just don't draft players from Clemson.
You know what? You know what, Paul? I would have liked to take DeAndre Hopkins.
Okay, who would?
Clemson. Who do we have that just totally bit us? Spiller, Watkins, Lawson.
Yeah. Wait. Who is that? There are 2 linebackers as well.
Mike Stewart? Tony Stewart.
Tony Stewart. Yeah, that was one. Yeah, I'm done with it.
It's not good. It's not good, man. Hurts.
Yeah, done with it.
It hurts too damn much.
Picks 25. Kelvin Benjamin back at a cheaper price. Kelvin Benjamin is not employed for a reason, right? When he went to the Chiefs last season, you saw why.
I don't know.
Right?
I don't know. We do need a tackle.
I saw someone mention we should bring Carlos Williams back too in the chat. I mean, if he wants to play, guard, I'm sure he's probably right about where he's got to be.
Just keep him out of the fitness room. That's all. Stone hands, KB. Yeah, Cameron, go get him. Paul, do you want to, before we wrap this up, do you want to tell everybody about the draft show that we're going to be on?
Oh, yeah. So if you guys are local, even if you're not, we're going to be streaming the NFL draft. So every year we do draft coverage with our friends over at Rock Sports Network. So we cover the draft live as it's happening, and it is Bills-specific draft coverage. So every pick that happens along the way, we're talking about the impact that it has on the Bills. Could they trade up? Are they going to trade down? Is this the guy that they were really targeting? And we kind of walk through the draft position on the board from a Bills standpoint. So it's us and Ryan Lasel and Icy Vic and Drew Gibb from the Rock Cloud Report and Rich Weissman from Rock Sports Network. And we're part of a very large panel. And we're going to be at Batavia Downs 34 Rush. So if you want to come hang out with us, we're going to be there. And we're going to be there for day 1 and day 2 of the draft, covering everything that's happening specific to the Buffalo Bills. So even if you're not local and you really just don't want to listen to the national draft coverage, I don't blame you. Typically, Rock Sports has put this always on Facebook, but we're, again, trying to make sure that we can get our YouTube audience the exposure and the coverage that they need. Mm-hmm. So we are trying to work out the plugs to make sure that we can get this across as many platforms as possible through simulcast. So if you're in the area and if you're close to Batavia and want to come out, we're going to be there. We're going to be hanging out. It's going to be awesome to see you guys and actually shake your hand. But even if you're not local, don't listen to the national guys, dude. Just don't do it yourself.
No, it's just Like I put out a little the promo video today, and I hope some of you guys saw it. Basically detailing what Paul just said. National guys, they either go for the hot button topic. They're either talking about. I bet you about 90% of the talk is going to be about the Cleveland Browns this year, not them being in the top 10, but them trading for OBJ and how the personalities over there could work. No one really says anything good about the Bills. Like, well, the Bills are on the clock. Let's talk about this other team for 15 minutes and not talk about the Bills, and it's just annoying. So like Paul said, to have a dedicated Bills-centric discussion, and it'll be on Facebook Live, and we'll have the link for you for that. We'll try to get it simulcast as well on YouTube. But just oh my God, Ranch! You stop
Ranch with wings.
You just want
sin.
You want people to hate you. I swear to God. No, but no, like Paul said, I'd love to meet you guys. Come on out. We're there all night. I mean, it's a casino, for crying out loud. It's open the whole night. After the draft's over, we're not done. So, I'd love to meet you guys. So you should come out. A whole gallon of ranch, Calvin, dude, pump your brakes, kid. Oh God. So, hope you guys enjoyed the live feed tonight. We tried to, hopefully the audio and everything worked out for you. And Mario, that's Paul over there. I got to point that way. from #Sports. And thanks for joining us, guys. We'll see you.
Later, guys.